Once they had spent the afternoon looking at odds and ends. He remembers an onion skin, elegant in its simplicity, the cells stacked together like brickwork. There is the understanding that she is no longer here, that it was sudden and irrevocable, but this understanding is one moment spread over 1,000 hours, a continuous thought that tries to forget itself. And then, when that fails, to bargain, to change everything, to fall asleep and go back to another point in time. Time, Gail had said once as he fell asleep in her arms, is the only thing we need. At Strathcona Elementary School, the Sunday morning Tai Chi class is already in motion. He can see them through the fence as he walks. Grandparents in neon tracksuits moving across the pavement in an ensemble, a fluid echo of cause and effect. Bird plucking a leaf from the tree. Hands separating heaven from earth. Gail had listed these off for him, epic names for the smallest gestures. Together, they step purposefully across the chalk lines for hopscotch and foursquare. Ansel buys his breakfast at the Newtown Bakery, where a woman wearing a blank name tag gives him a paper bag filled with warm bread. He continues through Chinatown, past the tanks of melancholy fish. Vegetables spill out from the markets, and the street lamps, recently painted a festive red, glow in the early morning. After the service, the flowers had followed her across the city from Hastings Street to 49th Avenue, the houses giving way to Central Park, giving way to the burial grounds. The workers arranged the tall flower stands in concentric circles around her grave, making a perfumed forest. He walked into it, and in the center he found her. Each night the rain knocked them down, the wind scattered the petals across the cemetery, and every day he set them up again. One afternoon he arrived in the middle of a storm. He raised the flowers up onto their stands, and they collapsed on top of him. He hugged them to his body and lifted them up once more. Half a year has gone by since then, but this morning, when he walks along the pebbled road beside False Creek, his thoughts return to that small plot of land and the flowers he laid there yesterday. His friend Ed Carney once spent an entire morning giving Ansel his thoughts on passing time. Time's arrow pointing in both directions, the past flying into view as you stumble backwards into the future. Walter Benjamin's Angel of History. Ed had mused about scientists who experimented with their circadian rhythms, reestablishing themselves on a 26-hour clock. Mostly they had the police after them, wondering what trouble they were up to. The conversation had ended there. Ed had gone back to mowing his lawn, and Ansel had continued walking. Now, he sits on the dock at the creek, the moored boat swaying with the current, and he eats his breakfast. Sunday morning in the city is still sleeping, but she is there beside him, running her feet through the water. That is another timeline, the morning of Gail's last birthday, fall and not summer. Their last conversation was a telephone call, long distance. His memories struggle to stay afloat. Time moves forward, and Ansel feels the divide in his body. One part of him carrying on, living moment to moment. The other part lost to him on the day she died. In the afternoon, he walks down the street to Kiefer and Princess, to the two-story that belongs to Gail's parents. Along the way, he passes dry lawns, cascading sprinklers, crooked hopscotch drawings, an arrow drawn in chalk pointing for an instant at his feet with the words "Typical Homo sapiens." When he arrives, Gail's parents are in the kitchen. Matthew is stooped in front of the sink, and Clara is at the counter. Ansel leaves his sandals at the kitchen door and enters barefoot. Immediately, the soles of his feet are covered with flour. "You're early," Clara says, pleased. The counter is an avalanche of green vegetables. Something that smells sweet and tangy is simmering on the stove. He says, "I've come to help." Gail's father turns, one hand still holding the cleaver. He looks panicked at the suggestion. "Wonderful," Clara says. "We still have plenty of time." She gestures him towards the seat across from her. In the decade